I was talking to Scylla, the one editing this video, not long ago, and she said something that captured the spirit of this video very concisely. She said, remove the word success from your vocabulary. You don't know how to use it right now. Success. It's such a lofty word, and it's a word we seem to learn in whatever language before anything else. The moment you picked up this course, which promised to teach you the core fundamentals of drawing, you probably had notions of success in your mind. Success at drawing all the things you've held inside for so long. Or perhaps success at finding those ideas within yourself, feeling otherwise empty and devoid of creativity at this moment. We all want to succeed, and conversely, we all hate to fail. Perhaps it's a normal, natural human problem, or perhaps it's something that we're conditioned to feel due to our exposure to traditional academics. But what if I told you that failure was the path to success? What if I told you that your fear of failure is what stands in your way and holds you back from that success you desire most? What if I told you your fear of drawing things badly, of embarrassing yourself, and your sense of shame is precisely what makes learning to draw so difficult? Before we really dig into that, let's ask ourselves a simple question. If and when we become as skilled as we could possibly dream, what would we spend our time drawing? Some people will be able to answer this quickly, while others may struggle, thinking that they don't actually have any ideas at all, that their brains are just empty. In my experience, both in having been such a person and in speaking to others, this isn't actually likely. Some of us are just hyper-efficient at filtering our thoughts. We'll try to come up with ideas, but instead of simply accepting an idea for what it is, we immediately start to consider whether it's a good idea, or if we, with our current skills, would be able to pull it off. And if we don't consider ourselves to be ready, we come to a single motivation-crushing conclusion. I can't draw that. Like someone is going to bust through your wall and punish you for ever having tried. You can't. Maybe one day, but not now. But why not now? Shame? Embarrassment? Over what? We are the ones bringing this to the table. We are the ones putting this undue pressure, this weight on our shoulders. There's no one else. No third party who's going to chastise you for it. If you even decide to post your attempt online, which is entirely your choice, the worst that'll happen is that people will ignore it. No one will be angry or disappointed, because the truth is, no one actually cares. And that's a good thing, because it means you're free to try anything and everything and nothing will go wrong. Will you draw the thing well? Probably not. But that's okay, and that's the point. You have nothing to lose by trying. In Drawabox, this isn't just some empty platitude or nicety to keep you warm on a cold night. In fact, it's something that students truly loathe, especially early on. In Drawabox, we don't simply encourage you to throw yourself into drawing things that are well beyond your skill level. We demand it. We've even given it a name. It's called the 50% rule, and you're probably going to hate it. The 50% rule is simple. For every minute you spend working on learning to improve your drawing skills, through courses, exercises, studies, tutorials, and so on, you must spend an equal measure of time on drawing purely for the sake of drawing. Now, a lot of you will have the immediate response of, oh hell no, I'm a beginner. I can't draw anything. Maybe I'll do this after I've gotten somewhere with the course itself. I've heard it a million times, and it comes from a place of fear. Fear that, like I've already mentioned, will be judged or shamed or embarrassed. Fear that the end result will make us look like, what? Beginners? Since when was that a bad thing? Then there are those among you who will focus on what you get out of it. It is fairly normal for students to think of this as a waste of time, but I'll explain in a moment why it's so valuable. While everyone is certainly a little different, and there are some among you who will happily follow the rule without issue, they are in the minority. There is, however, one thing everyone who's taking this course shares. They'd like for their drawings to be better. They'd like to improve. Whether it's to please themselves, to impress others, or to work towards a career, no matter the reason, they're here for the same core goal: to draw better. The 50% rule asks you to, half the time, forget about getting better. Forget about being good. To focus only on the act of drawing, of playing, as though the page is going straight into a shredder when you're done. This will be frustrating at first, and you will hate it. But over time, if you stop fighting it, it will get easier. It will become enjoyable, eventually. And this is what will get you through this course and every course thereafter. There are a number of reasons why the 50% rule is important. Firstly, the 50% rule wasn't around the whole time. Drawabox is a course that is constantly evolving based on what I've learned about, well, how other people learn. I'm no fancy professor with a master's degree in learning sciences. I'm a self-taught instructor who's learned by doing. So, one problem I saw my students encountering was that after they'd go through the whole course, they'd have developed a great deal of technical skill. But when it came to drawing the things they actually cared about, cool vehicles, engaging characters, complex settings, and interesting scenes, they were still afraid. And that fear caused them to overthink, which in turn resulted in drawings that made them look far less capable than they were within the comforting confines of the course material. The reason for this simply comes down to the fact that everything is a skill. Even understanding how to take the tools you have at your disposal, that courses like Drawabox arm you with, and to apply them to a specific problem or towards a certain goal is itself a skill. And it's one that will inevitably go underdeveloped if all we do is focus on the courses to hold our hands. Play is important. It's something children do really well, because they're not so afraid of being judged. But as we grow, we forget how. Furthermore, and this is important, it becomes a lot harder to learn how to play when you've developed the technical skill and the expectations that come along with it. As a beginner, there are still some barriers of expectation, but it's far easier to remind yourself of the simple fact that you are a beginner, and that any such expectations are utterly ridiculous. After you've spent 6 months, or a year, or 2 learning the fundamentals though, if you find yourself still struggling to apply those skills to the things that are actually truly important to you, you might just throw everything in the garbage and quit. Of course, even those people can learn to play, but it will save you a lot of pain to get through the hard stuff now. And trust me, even in the face of some of the grueling exercises and challenges that await you here at Drawabox, the 50% rule will be the most difficult, at least at first. Secondly, it helps us learn and process the information that we absorb through the lessons. In learning, there is time spent actually studying, doing exercises, reading instructional books, and so on. We'll call this the positive space of learning, the real meat of it. And then, on the flip side of the same coin, there is the negative space, that is, the time in between, which we spend on pretty much everything that isn't active learning. This includes things like eating, sleeping, watching TV, reading fiction, hanging out with friends, or playing video games. Traditional academics, and really anything that puts a lot of focus on achievement and ambition, focuses heavily on the positive space of learning. And in doing so, it makes us ignore and even reject the clear benefits of the other side. Taking breaks, pushing our brain to focus on other things, playing, and sleeping are incredibly important for the simple reason that our brain needs time to process and assess what we've learned. It cannot do this while continually taking in yet more new information. Those who cram for exams rather than pacing themselves and spreading things out encounter this frequently. In order to learn optimally, we must seek balance. Balance between work and play. Not only does it help make learning more efficient, it also helps us focus better during the periods of active learning. It's common for students to get bored and distracted when forced to study and work for too long, and this can result in aimless doodling on the side. While doodling isn't inherently bad, as a lot of people doodle while listening to lectures and find that it helps them absorb the material better, it does, however, impact how carefully a student might complete a drawing exercise, as it pulls away some of the cognitive resources we need to be using in order to complete the work to the best of our current capacity. By creating clearly delineated times for work and for play, we are able to burn off that nervous energy so we can focus our cognitive resources singularly on the task at hand when it's time to work. This also means that when we play, having done our work at our best, we can more easily allow ourselves to play shamelessly. Of course, those of you with ADHD or other similar struggles understand your circumstances far better than I do, so that specific point may not apply to you as directly, but take from it what you can. And of course, if you suspect you might have ADHD, do what you can to get diagnosed, as it can open up access to strategies to help manage the condition. That said, I really shouldn't speak too much about things I myself do not understand. Normally, when those topics come up, I have one of my teaching assistants who does have ADHD, and who's had periods of working through this course, both medicated and unmedicated, weigh in as she can speak from a position of first-hand knowledge. Sluggy, as she's been called since she joined our Discord community years ago, is also a clear sign that while these challenges can make things more difficult, they will not stop you from pursuing art, whether as a hobby or as a career. Though she's still early in her freelancing career, she's been able to work on projects for Ubisoft, among others. To that point, and this will be relevant to many of you, a lot of people out there will really struggle with the idea of doing something only to fail. Many of us have been taught that our value as an individual is inextricably tied to our ability to succeed, to the point that where forcing yourself to fail, as this course will have you do quite a bit, can actively trigger depressive episodes. It gets that much worse when you consider how many people actively try and use art as therapy, not as part of a larger regimen, but as their singular self-prescribed solution, and unfortunately, it can make things worse. For those of you in that situation, I strongly urge you to seek out whatever professional support you can. Therapy with a trained professional isn't about changing who you are, or attempting to fix you. Rather, at its core, it's about giving you the tools you need to better manage and understand your emotions, so that when you're faced with a bad drawing, you can understand not just on a logical level, but deep within you, on an emotional level, that this does not in any way suggest that you yourself are bad. So, don't be afraid to step away from this course and to seek out that help when you need it. We'll still be here when you're better equipped. Getting back on topic, and to recap, there are a number of critical reasons the 50% rule will make your learning experience more effective and more efficient. Firstly, it'll help you develop the skills that do need to be developed at some point, and doing it now will help you avoid some stinging disappointment later on. Second, the downtime spent on things other than active learning, preferably in a more relaxing fashion, will help you process the things that you've learned and absorb them more fully. Arguably, there are many ways to do this, though it does help if you're actually drawing things at the same time. And third, cleanly separating work and play allows us to do each wholeheartedly. Before I end this lecture and leave you all to sit paralyzed in front of a blank page, I have a video about that, by the way, you can watch it here, I want to talk a little about another fear students tend to have, the fear of developing bad habits. It's the fear that if I just jump in and start drawing like nothing matters, that I will learn to do things incorrectly, and this will follow me as I continue to develop my skills, making things harder. There are all kinds of things that beginners do naturally that they ultimately have to unlearn. Chicken scratching, drawing everything from the wrist, symbol drawing, and more. So it's not like this fear is unreasonable. It is, however, a waste of energy. As you develop any skill, you will learn and unlearn things. Many things that were useful for one reason or another initially stop being useful and become crutches later on. The fact that you outgrew them does not mean that they were not important and even necessary at some point. There simply isn't any use in worrying about the inevitable. And above all else, remember, the end result of these 50% rule drawings don't matter. That's why it's perfectly okay for me to tear up this drawing into itty-bitty pieces, despite having quite liked the monkey businessman and his banana. But wait, there's more! There are a couple of questions I tend to get a lot in regards to how one should be approaching their 50% rule drawing, so let me knock those off here. First, should I be trying to apply the techniques from Drawabox while working on the 50% rule? No. Draw in whatever way feels most comfortable to you. Drawabox is designed to have you drawing so much that you will have plenty of mileage to take the lessons and push them down into your subconscious. The lessons will become instinct. Rather, as you play, it's better not to be too stiff and worried about technique. This is the time where you just want to let go. Second, do I have to do my 50% rule in pen? This question comes up simply because we really stress the use of pen and ink when doing the Drawabox lessons. Again, the answer is no. Draw with whatever tools you're interested in using. A lot of students come to Drawabox really interested in digital media, but end up disappointed that we focus so much on traditional tools. I get it. I'm almost strictly a digital artist myself, and we'll get into the reasoning for this later. Rest assured though, you are welcome and even encouraged to dive straight into drawing and painting digitally as soon as you like for this 50%. This will also have the benefit of helping you get used to the specifics of using those tools, as this is yet another skill separate from these core fundamentals of drawing and will need to be explored at some point. Third, can I use reference during the 50% rule time? This is a difficult one, because the answer is both yes and no. It comes down to understanding your own intentions. Are you reaching for reference specifically because you're afraid to draw something badly? If that's the case, if that's something you just would not bother to try without the reference, then no. Draw it however you can from your imagination and let it go poorly. If, however, you're completely comfortable with that, perhaps after you've done your 50% rule time without reference for a few weeks, just to be sure, you can go ahead and use reference, with one major caveat. You may not simply work from a single reference image, effectively copying it as it is. This is called a study, and it's a useful drawing exercise that involves copying an object from observation or reference photo, in order to learn more about some specific aspect of it. As it is a tool for learning and improving, it falls under the same 50% as Drawabox and whatever other courses, lessons, exercises, and tutorials you may be working through. Instead, you need to make the decisions yourself, and merely use reference to fill in the gaps. For example, you may decide to draw a character astride a tiger, charging through a bazaar. Good luck finding a photo of exactly that to paint from. Instead, you'd find a picture of a tiger running, a person riding a horse, and multiple shots of market stalls, taking parts from each of them and incorporating them into your work. A quick note, when you do decide you're ready to use reference, PureRef is an excellent tool for organizing your reference and displaying it as you work. While it is available for free, it is so undeniably useful that if you can spare a few dollars, it'd be a shame not to pay what they recommend. Now you may go, but what you should do next is go over to the Drawabox website, whichever page this video is on, and take a look at the Other Resources section. I'll have some links to the other videos about developing a healthier, more resilient mindset from people like myself, Steven Zapata, and others as I find them.